Welcome to Beyond Barber School. I am your host, Barber Doza. This podcast, Beyond Barber School, is a space where listeners will hear stories from barbers, educators, and founders that are elevating the barbering industry in and out of the barbershop. Our hope here is to empower barbers with the knowledge necessary to take a courageous next step in their barber journey. Welcome to Beyond Barber School. We are doing a mini-series called The Guideline. This mini-series is where I'll share my perspective on a specific topic and get very, very practical. Hope here is still the same, that you'll hear my story, a little bit more about my journey, and ultimately be empowered with knowledge to take a strategic next step in your business. I hope you enjoy the series called The Guideline. So I mentioned I worked a lot with barbershop owners and helping them come up with business strategy, whatever, depending upon, where they were at in their business. So I worked with a booking software company where, in order to have those conversations about booking softwares, I actually needed to understand more about their barbershop and the pain points and challenges that they were facing. And one of the biggest things that kept coming up, in this post-pandemic, COVID reality, is a lot of shop owners were saying that they were having a hard time finding barbers. And so a lot of these shop owners are, now hiring new barbers. And so this question of how do I find new barbers, or even the question of how do I retain my barbers, how do I keep my barbers, like that was something that kept coming up. There was one barbershop owner that had been in the game for like 25 plus years. He's owned a barbershop for, 20 years. And his young barbers were jumping ship. They were leaving his shop, going to another shop down the street, or, going to open up their own shop. And he was kind of just, felt pretty defeated and just trying to figure out where he went wrong and how he might be able to find new barbers and keep them so that they don't want to go somewhere else. And so I feel like there's a few different types of shop owners or postures that a shop owner can have. And so this episode is definitely, thinking about shop owners for sure. But at the same time, like, barbers can listen to this as well who aren't necessarily shop owners, but maybe you're thinking about opening up a shop one day, or you're reflecting on your experience at the shop you're at right now. And I hope maybe this episode will give you things to think about that maybe you can go talk to your shop owner about, in hopes to just create an environment that you love, working in, and a shop that you wouldn't want to leave, but one that you really look forward to going to every day. And so I hope, both sides of the coin, shop owners will listen to this, but also barbers will listen to this. And hopefully it sparks just a good conversation amongst, teams of barbers, in hopes to, again, create a culture that all barbers on the team look forward to being a part of. And just look forward to going to work every day. So a few postures that I was thinking of. One is a shop owner that is reactive. This might even be a defensive shop owner. So like maybe a barber says that they're leaving, wants to go somewhere else, and that shop owner might get kind of defensive or defend, their shop. Or maybe they don't necessarily say it to the barber. Maybe they're just thinking it, or they, talk to somebody else about it, but they give reasons why they feel like that barber's dumb, or the barber's not loyal, or this, that, and this. So I feel like there are some shop owners that can be reactive or even defensive. There's some shop owners that I'd say are just more confused or defeated, where they maybe had a barber and they thought everything was going good, but then they decided to leave and they just don't understand, where they went wrong, and they're trying to, put the pieces together. The other shop owners that are out there, I say, is, proactive, and they're on the offensive, right? They're constantly making moves. They're trying to score, right? They're constantly upgrading their space, and, they're, instead of, they're just constantly trying to look ahead of times and look ahead of trends so that they stay ahead of the curve, so that they almost become that shop that other barbers like really want to work at, and they don't necessarily have a problem filling their chairs because their barbers are happy, but if someone did leave, they know that the moment that they posted, someone would want to work with them. So I don't know. There's a few different imposters. I don't know where you maybe find yourself. Like, it's maybe something to think about. But I want to kick this off by just thinking about a conversation about recruiting as a whole. So as I mentioned in my first episode of getting to know me, I got my bachelor's degree in communication studies from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I actually have a background working in sales for tech companies. And on LinkedIn, I would get recruited by other tech companies, and they reach out and they say, hey, we have this exciting opportunity. I think you'd be a good fit for it. And they would always message me, and they would include, like, this is what the salary is going to be. This is how much, commission on target earning you're going to make, because I was in sales, so commission was a big part of it. And they'd say, these are our benefits, and these are some incentive plans, or et cetera. Like, they're talking up the opportunity to get me interested. And I think that conversation of, like, what's the salary, how much commission are you making, what's the benefits, those are like basic questions that I would ask these recruiters if they're asking me, hey, you want to look into this opportunity? Like, I just ask them those questions, what's the salary, what's the commission earning, and what are the benefits? It's just almost like a basic follow-up just to see if it's something I should even consider. And I think this is something that I want to talk about. So I think this is totally related to barbering, and this is related to this conversation of how do you find barbers and how do you keep barbers. Let's just talk about salary. Like, so if you're a shop owner, I think this is something you need to know. Like, how much are your barbers making right now? Right? On average, how many clients do they see every day? What is their income? Like, how much would you project them to be making at your shop? And what's the rent that you're charging them? Or what's the commission split that you're charging them? What are your barbers walking away with? And if you've been in the industry for a while, like, you kind of have an idea of what's a good number for them to be at, or what's a number that might be low, where they're not necessarily making what they would like to be making, especially right now in a time where everyone's talking about being a six-figure barber, everyone's talking about raising their prices, et cetera, et cetera. I just think it's a good, like, financial audit for you to look and see how much are your barbers making. Now, all right. One big thing that would come up when I talk to shop owners, especially booth rental barbershops, is they'd say, I'm not that type of shop owner. I don't want my barbers, I don't want to know how much they're making. All I care about is, collecting booth rent at the end of the day. And as long as that happens, then I don't really care. Now, I totally understand that, you don't want to be a shop owner that's like a helicopter and, micromanaging or making people feel like you're watching them. I totally get that. And that's not what I'm suggesting. But this is a question that would come up when I talk to shop owners, and I think it's just one that you should think about. I had a conversation, this one guy was nearing retirement, and he'd been in the game for like 30 plus years, and I was like, how soon you want to retire? And he's like, well, probably within the next few years. So I asked him the question, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to sell the shop? Like, are you going to keep the shop, just rent it out? Like, what do you want to do? And he was like, well, I think I'd like to sell the shop. I was like, okay, well, how much are you going to sell it for? And he's like, I have no idea. I was like, okay, well, how are you going to determine how much to sell it for? And he's like, I don't know. It's such an interesting question because shop owners, like, you're running a business, right? And if someone came up to you and was like, I want to buy your business, like, you should have an idea of how much is the business worth. And I'm not necessarily just talking about, the cost of what it took to furnish it. Obviously, that's a part of it. Like, you would take all the equipment that's in the shop. Like, okay, if you're going to buy the shop, then you get all the chairs, you get all the stations, you get the shampoo bowls, like the furniture, the waiting area, chairs, etc., the register. Like, sure, you're going to add up all the equipment and you're going to say, all right, this is just the cost of equipment. But then there's other things that also will go into figuring out how much is the shop worth, right? How many clients do you have on average? How much is the shop making daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, right? How long is, like, your clientele list? Like, how many clients do you have in your database on average? How often are they coming in? On average, how much are your barbers making? Now, you've established and created like a brand for yourself. You've been in the game for 30 years, whatever it is, 25 years, and you've established a brand. Like, you've done such hard work to be a part of the community. Like, you better not sell it for just the cost of furniture or to take over the lease. Like, if someone's coming in to buy the shop, then they're also going to be buying potentially like the clientele list. Like, they might be inheriting the barbers that are going to stay on the team, and you need to know how much they're making. And you have to consider those things, like add it all up and to see, this is how much my business is worth. Now, why, you're like, well, why do I need to do that? Like, that's so much work. Well, I mean, you think about retirement. It's like, okay, if you're a shop owner and you're wanting to retire, maybe your body's just giving out and you can't cut anymore. Sure, I hope you've been investing in savings and investing in, your 401k or like a Roth IRA or whatnot. But, when you think about, quote unquote, traditional jobs of sorts and just the traditional marketplace, when you retire, maybe there's like a severance package or there's some package that they give you to retire. If you sell your shop, like, I kind of look at it that way. Like, you're about to get a massive paycheck that will hopefully, that money will go a long way into your retirement, might fund your next business venture, or might just be enough, honestly, for you to retire and then, live off of your investments or savings or whatnot. And so why I'm asking this question, when you say how much, when I ask you how much do your barbers make right now, and you're like, I don't want to know what that is. I'm like, okay, well, let's take a higher view of this. How much is your shop worth? How much is your business worth? If someone were to come and want to buy you out, how would you determine those things? A piece of that will for sure be considering how much your barbers are making, because that's a piece of the real estate, right? The neighborhood that you've created. Not every barbershop I consider is like as a neighborhood. If you bought a house in one neighborhood versus maybe a different neighborhood, because of what that neighborhood is and the benefits or the culture of it, it might end up costing more, even if it's in the same city. And so it's just, how much is your neighborhood worth, right? So again, salary to me is, you're not being nosy. Like, it's just business, for you, if your barbers, if they really don't want you to know or have even just a ballpark, like, I'm not saying get all the way down to the dollars and cents, but if you have a ballpark of this conversation, sit down with them, just set some expectations. Like, hey, I don't necessarily want to know for tax purposes or anything like that. Like, I'd like to know because, I am trying to recruit barbers, and I kind of want to get an idea of how much my barbers are making now, so that if I have a conversation with a barber coming in, I can give them a ballpark. Like, this is the range of money that you might be able to make here at my shop, or that you will make at my shop. And the other part to that is, you have to talk about reality with your barbers. You genuinely, as a shop owner, want them to be successful. It's hard to help someone be successful, have a successful career, even financially, and to provide for their family. It's hard to do that if you don't know what their reality is, especially financially. So anyways, that's the conversation about salary. It took a little longer than expected, so I'll try to move quick. The next one is like commission. Now, when I worked at a shop, I was at a barber shop that was booth rent, but I also made 10% off of all products that I sold. So I guess that's a question. How can your barbers make money besides cutting hair? Are you selling product? Are you selling merch? Is there incentive for your barbers to sell those things? Like, some shop, I would consider giving them a percentage. If they sell it, you want to incentivize them to selling your merch or selling your product. It's good for the shop, right? And it will make you more money, and it will make them more money. You might know Leche down in LA. I remember going to a seminar, a class that he was teaching, and he was talking about setting a goal for selling products. And the goal for him was essentially, pay your rent with the money you made off of selling products, so that everything that you made off of services, like, that's in your pocket. And that's a great goal, I think, would be, if that's something that doesn't take too much effort. It's just upselling at the end of your service, or making sure that the products you're using when you're styling their hair or when you're shampooing them or whatever, you make sure that that's stocked on the shelf. And if they like it, then they can buy it, right? So what does that look like in your shop? Are there other incentives for these barbers, who are considering where they want to work? Like, what are what's another way for them to make money besides cutting hair? Now, the other thing about, when recruiters would reach out to me is they talk about benefits, right? And I would want to know about, okay, like what's your, health insurance, or do you have a matching program? Or one company was like, oh, we'll give you a wellness stipend of like $125 to spend on wellness. And whether that was like my gym membership, or if I wanted to go get a massage, honestly, go get a haircut, like those would fall under the umbrella of wellness that I could essentially reimburse, just submit the receipt of that expense, and then they would actually reimburse me for it. So anyways, there's benefits that's just natural to having a job with an employer. Now, I want you to think about how can you translate benefits into your barbershop. So one big benefit that I had, it might sound silly, but honestly, it was a huge benefit. That the shop I worked at was above a brewery. The brewery was this speakeasy. Shout out to Barrel House Brewing in the Central Coast. It's huge, a real dope brewery. I love their beer, honestly, personally. And one of the benefits was every day that I worked, I could go downstairs to the Speakeasy Brewery and I could get any beer on tap, any pint, anything. And so it was great. After work, I'd head down, to the bar and grab a beer. They had, great rotational selection. And so I would just try like a different beer, honestly. I at one point was going most of the days, but tried to cut back because it ended up being a lot of beer. But all to say is, that was a huge benefit that doesn't necessarily make its way onto, me making money, but it is a benefit that I get, and I also got like discounted merch from the brewery, and they honestly had super dope merch, and I like rock a ton of their merch still to this day. Another benefit might be continuing education. Like, how do you as a shop owner continue to invest in the barber education for your team? I've seen a lot of shops that will bring in guest educators for a special class. Like, they'll bring them into the barbershop and, have them do a hands-on class. Or I've seen, I've actually worked at a lot of barber expos, and I would see teams of barber shops, like group of 10 barbers that would come in, and they were all rocking together, walking around, the expo. Some of the barbers would be, in the barber battles, and the shop owners like paid for those barbers tickets to the expo, and maybe put up their hotel and like covered the cost for them to go to an expo. Like, that shows that you're a shop owner, that, you put your money where your mouth is. Like, I want to invest in you, and for your continuing education, for you to get better, I'm going to cover the cost for you to go to, to this expo that's coming up. So that might be something to think about. What kind of continuing education are you offering? Another one, is cool. There's one shop in town I think is dope. I don't work there, but I'm friends with the barbers there, and that shop owner, he's always taking his barbers out to dinner. Like, it's a smaller team, just like four barbers. He's always taking them out to dinner, like, all the time, and like nice dinners too, right? This isn't just like cheap dinners. And I don't know if he's paying or what he's doing. I'm assuming he's probably covering the bill because, that's like a write-off for him. But what kind of team atmosphere bonding do you have? Like, I remember the shop owner I had took our whole team out for dinner for Christmas, around Christmas time, to celebrate like the end of the year. And he was just like, order whatever you want. And I was like, dang, that's what's up. Like, this is legit. And so even those things, like, do you have team dinners, like quarterly team dinners, or like, what kind of benefit is there to be a part of the team? Like, are you giving them merch? Like, you giving them t-shirts to rock the shop swag, or what does that look like? Another one I wanted to mention, even benefits wise, is like marketing. And so this again is a conversation I think that's happening in the community of like, who's responsible for marketing? Like, if, I've seen a ton of memes about, well, if you're a barber and you're not busy, and the shop owner, it's whose responsibility is it to get you clients? Is it the individuals or is it the shop owners? And I'm not going to tell you there's no right answer to that question, but as a shop owner, if you're considering recruiting barbers and retaining barbers, I'd say some things that, to think about is like, what does your website look like? Are your barbers going to get like a biography on your website? Again, like, what does your booking system look like? Like, will they get a chance to use your booking system so that it's easy for their clients to book with them? what is your, Google SEO? Like if I Google barbershop in my city, are you number one that shows up? Like the shop that I ended up going with, one of the biggest reasons to go with them was honestly because the shop owner was extremely marketing savvy. His website was impressive. I would have a bio there. He had this whole campaign. I lived in a college town, and he had like a booth that was on campus where we were cutting hair, and he was giving out like thousands of T-shirts. He's probably spent thousands of dollars on that just to make presents and do marketing to these new freshmen that just moved to town. And there's no coincidence, like he and the shop won the award for best barbershop according to the college students. So he was focusing on that market, and a lot of our clientele were college students. And so what type of marketing are you doing? Because yeah, I'd say it's both and, right? The individual barber needs to be doing marketing and promoting themselves for sure, but the shop also can be doing that as well. And if you have both of them doing it, then that's going to be a busy barber, and that chair is going to be full. If you have an individual barber that's renting a booth and is like doing all their marketing, then like that's awesome, but they hopefully that doesn't develop into like resentment to be like, man, this shop doesn't do anything. Like I'm the one that's bringing most of the clients here, because of their Instagram presence or whatever it is that they're doing, or YouTube channel, or like guerrilla marketing that they're doing. Or if it's a shop owner that feels like, man, all these barbers are relying on me to bring in clientele, that's not great either, because then if the barber's not busy, then they're going to be like, man, the shop owner's marketing sucks. I'm going to go somewhere else. So it's like, I don't know, the conversation of marketing, I think, is just really important for you to consider as a shop owner. And when someone is coming to you and considering if they want to work at your shop, like what information can they gather that's online without even picking up the phone to talk to you or without even messaging you? The more content that's out there for that potential barber to engage with and to like get to know your culture, get to know like what you guys are about, and even understand like your footprint, your digital footprint of sorts. If you can present a case of why your marketing is valuable, then that's going to be a huge benefit. Consider what are other shops doing in your town? What can it look like for you to have a better marketing plan, and a better presence than, the competition? Because that might be what does differentiate whether a barber decides to stay on your team or join your team, right? So again, that just brings me back to all the conversations I've had with shop owners where they keep talking about like, man, I'm having a hard time keeping barbers. I'm having a hard time finding barbers. My barbers are leaving. And I'm just reminded of that shop owner that had been in the game 25 years, and he just noticed his young barbers were leaving. And, we don't need to get into like if young barbers are loyal or, that's a whole different conversation. That's not what I want to talk about. But this shop owner actually told me, he's like, I realized I needed to modernize. And so he needed to look at his numbers and check his stats and just see his revenue, see if there were any red flags when, he realized, oh no, that barber wasn't making enough. When I really thought about it, it makes sense that they went somewhere else, like check your stats, check the numbers, check the revenue, get a website, upgrade your website, learn about marketing, learn about, SEO, search engine optimization, read things about this demand gen marketing that's out there, reconsider your management systems, whether that's the booking flows or, do you have a Google listing? What do your reviews look like online? Maybe ask your clients, send out a campaign and ask your clients to fill out a 5-star review for you and give them my 10% off a product. Like get creative. And there's things that you can definitely do right now to be proactive, right? To be that shop owner that's on the offensive, on the offense, that can really help solve this problem. And obviously these are things where you obviously have to take into consideration like your city and your context. Some things might not work in your city that would work in another city. So always take this information that I'm sharing with you, don't take it as, as full truth. Like I just want to share these things to get the gears rolling for you so that you can think about and be creative of what might work best for you in your situation. All right. So I laid out a ton, but, again, come back to the question of, what is a courageous next step that you can take today, given where you're at in your barber journey or barbershop owner journey or career, etc. All right. What's a courageous next step that you can take today? Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Again, hope this was valuable. Give me some feedback. Would love even if you were to rate and review my podcast. And yeah, send it to somebody who you think might benefit from this conversation as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time on the next one. All right. Take care. Peace.